A movie that has sat on the shelf for almost a decade finally gets released, and the reaction from audiences and critics alike is about what you'd expect. Let's talk about The King's Daughter. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new movie. Let's put new in quotes, shall we? The King's Daughter in theaters right now after a long and winding journey there, which we will get into in just a little bit here with my review. But first, I want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video and my channel. I'm very, very close to 900 subscribers, just 2 or 3 away. That is my next milestone, so please consider subscribing down below there. Would love to have you aboard. And think about clicking that notification bell as well. You'll find out when I release all of my new TV and movie reviews. So let's get into this movie. It is in theaters now, and it made less than $1 million in its first week, and I know we're still sort of in COVID times and everything, but, you know, when a bomb like The King's Man made over $1 million this week in week number like 4 or something, it really speaks volumes to the interest level, I think, of people in this movie. So, I guess we'll talk about the movie first, and then I'll sort of get into the background of what took so long to put this movie on the big screen. But it was completed in 2014, so we're looking now at nearly 8 full years ago. It was completed in May of 2014, so 7.5, 8 years it took from completion to the big screen. So we have Pierce Brosnan here starring as King Louis XIV, and basically the plot revolves around his quest for being immortal, and it leads him to capture and steal a mermaid's life force. The mermaid played by Fan Bingbing, who is one of China's biggest stars. And this move is further complicated by the fact that his daughter, played by Kayla Scodelario, she discovers the creature and, you know, has her own ideas of what to do with her. William Hurt is here, Rachel Griffiths as well, and a narration from Julie Andrews, which I believe was not part of the original deal. She was just announced as the narrator last year, I believe. So she may have been put in a bit later to sort of complete the storybook motif. It sort of starts out with that whole, like, you know, once upon a time, and we see the book opening. I mean, this is stuff that Walt Disney was doing in the 40s and 50s with his movies. My buddy Tim and I have been talking about that with you know, our Dan Does Disney reviews. So you know, I guess a more current interpretation would be like The Princess Bride kind of thing. And this movie was directed by Sean McNamara, who is known for, I think, more, you know, kid-friendly fare. This movie is PG. It's, you know, perfect for the whole family, I guess. But he directed Soul Surfer. He's done stuff with Nickelodeon and that sort of thing. So kids stuff is kind of his wheelhouse. And it's based on this book, The Moon and the Sun, from the late 90s. And in fact, that's when the ball originally got rolling for this movie, back in 1999. But again, we'll get into that in a little bit. So this movie is not good. Now, obviously, audiences are sort of turning away from this. Like I said, it made less than $1 million in its opening weekend. But critics are really harsh on it as well. And why is that? This critic is not going to be very kind to it either. First of all, in a movie like this that takes place in like the 1600s, late 1600s, you expect to see a lot of things. For example, you know, castles and certain, you know, clothing choices and hairstyle choices and that sort of thing. And a lot of movies that are made in this kind of vein get heaped on with the compliments about, oh, the costume design is so great and the hairstyling and makeup is so great. It is so atrocious in this movie. It looks as if these women specifically are coming out of the 80s scene with the haircuts, the makeup especially, and the costume choices. A lot of like really bright pops of color and things that I don't think are at all authentic to the original time. So this is one movie where I'm going to sort of say that the costuming is a huge negative. And I'm not much of a fashionista, so for me, I think it says something if I've noticed that the period clothing is way way off. And I was thinking of a comparable sort of movie or TV show in this case is Dickinson with Haley Steinfeld, because it does take place years and years and years ago, centuries ago, and yet everything is very authentic, even though everything else is more modern, like the way they speak and the music in the background. It's all very modern, but the dresses and the decorations of rooms is all very authentic, I think, to the time period. Here we get none of that. Another big question is why is the CGI so bad in this? The movie cost $40 million to make, which these days I know isn't much, but over 8 years, I think they really could have done a better job with the CGI effects of the mermaid and a couple other things here or there. It looks ugly. It looks muddy. It does not look crisp. So that stood out to me immediately. Pierce Brosnan. I don't know what he's doing anymore. He certainly has his fans out there still, but he is really going through the motions here, and his character is just not somebody that gets a lot of development. He's just sort of, evil. Okay, we get it. He wants to be young forever. Who doesn't, but he just doesn't add anything to this already kind of weak script. But the journey from the 2014 completion to the screen. So originally, like I said, it was going to be a property in the late 90s. The Henson Company was going to sort of do this. Now, Jim Henson, was dead by that point, but, his production company carried on, and they were going to make this, which I think could have been interesting. But then something happened, like Sony bought them out or something, so they no longer existed. So then Disney picked up the baton in the early 2000s. For like 5 years, they were sort of working around it, and it just never ended up happening. So that fell apart. So finally, it was going to be released in 2015. It was completed in 2014 by Paramount, and they just took it off the schedule 3 weeks ahead of the release. People had posters up for this movie, and without really warning, they said, "Nah, we're not gonna. We need to spend more time." With the effects and whatever, which, by the way, is something that they could have done a couple of years ago with Cats. I don't think that was Paramount, but in any event, the effects were not completed for Cats, and I remember they had to ship out a different copy of the movie like 2 weeks later when they had completed more of the movie. So okay, they didn't want that sort of situation with this. Great, but then it doesn't seem like they worked on anything. So in any event, finally it was picked up and released now by this very, very small company. Personally, I think it should have went right to DVD or streaming or whatever people are doing these days. I guess you don't go direct to DVD, you go direct to Netflix, I guess. It's not good. But here's why I'm not going to fail it. I think the key story here between Pierce Brosnan and the mermaid and his daughter is actually mildly interesting. I can see why the book was a success. It does not translate at all to the screen, but there are seeds of good ideas here that nobody knew what to do with. And by the way, Soul Surfer would have come out right around this time. I think that was maybe 2012. So this director was, at the time hot off of this very successful PG family film. And here he certainly could not duplicate that success. Very, very little about this works. And seeing the lead girl, what's her name? Carla Scardillo or whatever. Kaya Scaldario. I just saw her in the new Resident Evil film, which I have to still review, by the way. But it's amazing that she's probably 19 or something when they filmed this, but she's playing like, 16 probably. And in Raccoon City, she's, this buff, badass woman, completely different. And the movies came out within like a month of each other. It's just very odd. So yeah, usually I don't sort of delve into the background of movies like this, But when I heard that this had been sitting on the shelf for 8 years, I had to see what the story was. And it did not benefit the movie. It certainly didn't benefit the audience. So yeah, I'm going to leave The King's Daughter with a D. Not starting the year off well, 2022. January is usually dumping ground for a lot of movies, and we've seen one pretty good one so far in Scream, and then this is sort of the alternate end of that. King's Daughter, not a good movie. So, all right, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.